Why your empire is killing your erotic life and what to do about it. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Soft Girl Era, the sacred space where strong Black women unlearn survival, rediscover softness, and reclaim the joy, rest, and freedom they deserve without guilt, without apology, and without explanation. I'm your host, LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French. And I'm your guide from burnout to boundaries, from doing to being, from strong to soft, and loving every second of it. Today, I want to shake up everything you thought you knew about keeping passion alive while building your empire. I recently had the privilege of interviewing Kimberly Gorham-Bolt, a powerhouse in the world of intimacy coaching and relationship transformation. Kimberly has dedicated her life to helping high achieving Black couples reclaim the erotic connection that gets buried under boardroom meetings, business launches, and the relentless grind of building legacies. Her work is changing lives, restoring marriages, and reminding us that our romantic partnerships deserve the same intentionality we bring to our careers. She is shifting the narrative around the Black love, proving that desire doesn't have to die when ambition rises. What she shared with me, what I'm about to share with you, is nothing short of revolutionary. Here's the truth that most of us don't want to admit. We assume that career success naturally sustains romantic passion. We think that if we're winning in the boardroom, we should be winning in the bedroom too. But that's a lie. The surprising, uncomfortable, liberating truth is this: sexual chemistry must be intentionally rebuilt through open, non bedroom conversations about desires, turning roommates into erotic partners again, even after years of building empires together. Let me say that again. Sexual chemistry doesn't sustain itself, it requires intention, it requires conversation, it requires vulnerability outside of the bedroom, not just performance inside of it. Now, I know some of you are listening and thinking, LeAnne, I don't have time for this. I'm running a business, I'm raising kids, I'm holding down a household, I'm exhausted. And sis, I hear you, I see you. But here's what Kimberly Gorham-Bolt taught me and what the research confirms. When we neglect our intimate partnerships, when we let passion fade into polite cohabitation, we don't just lose our lover, we lose a piece of ourselves. We become strangers sharing a bed, friendly roommates splitting bills, two people orbiting separate worlds instead of colliding in electric, soul stirring intimacy. And for those of us who have spent years in survival mode, who have carried everyone and everything on our backs, who have been taught that strength means silence and softness means weakness, this conversation is even more critical because reclaiming our sensual selves, our erotic energy, our right to pleasure and desire is part of our soft girl era. It's part of dropping the cape. It's part of saying, I deserve to feel alive, not just productive. So let's talk about how we rebuild sexual chemistry. Let's talk about the three key insights that Kimberly Gorham-Bolt shared with me. Insights that are backed by research, proven by real couples, and available to every single one of us right now. The first insight is this: prioritize flirty, fantasy sharing talks outside the bedroom to reignite desire without pressure, keeping your partnership vibrant amid demanding entrepreneurial lives. Notice what I said: outside the bedroom, not during intimacy, not as foreplay, but in the kitchen, in the car, on a walk, over coffee. These are the conversations where you ask your partner, what's something you've been fantasizing about lately? Or what made you feel desired this week? Or if we had a whole weekend with no responsibilities, what would you want us to do together? These conversations are not about performance, they're about connection, they're about curiosity, they're about remembering that the person you're building an empire with is also the person you chose to love, to explore, to discover over and over again. Research from intimacy experts confirms this. Sexual chemistry is an unspoken dialogue of desire, built through conversations, flirting, and fantasy sharing. It's what prevents long term couples from becoming friendly roommates. And when we skip these conversations, when we assume our partner knows what we want or that desire should just happen naturally, we set ourselves up for disconnection. Let me tell you about Chelsea Fraser, a Black entrepreneur in Atlanta, Georgia. Chelsea was a corporate executive, climbing the ladder, crushing goals, and coming home to a partner she loved but no longer felt passion for. They had kids, they had promotions, they had a beautiful life on paper, but behind closed doors, they were cohabiting, not connecting. Chelsea described it as the roommate phase, where intimacy became a checkbox, desire became a distant memory, and passion became something they used to have. So Chelsea did something radical. She started having conversations, not about chores or schedules or who was picking up the kids, but about desire, about fantasies, about what made them feel alive. And slowly, intentionally, they rebuilt their chemistry. They started flirty texting during the day. They committed to 20-second hugs when they came home, long enough to actually feel each other's presence. They talked about what turned them on, what they missed, what they wanted to try, and it worked. Chelsea was so transformed by this process that she launched Span Club sensual workshops that blend therapy and play, helping couples revitalize their intimacy. These workshops create a safe space for couples to explore their desires, to talk openly about what's missing, and to experiment with new ways of connecting. Today, Span Club has expanded to 5 cities across the country, served over 500 couples, and participants report 80% higher satisfaction in their relationships. 80%. The lesson: prioritize dialogue over performance, prioritize curiosity over assumption, prioritize connection over convenience. Chelsea's story reminds us that passion doesn't die because we stop loving our partners. It dies because we stop talking to them. It dies because we stop asking questions. It dies because we assume that love is enough, when what we really need is intentional, ongoing, vulnerable conversation. The second insight Kimberly Gorham-Bolt shared with me is this: use confident, affirming words during intimacy, like, you feel so good, or I know what you like, to boost mutual sexual self esteem and pleasure, fostering deeper intimacy for Black power couples. Now, I know some of you just tensed up. Affirming words during intimacy. LeAnne, I can't say that. I don't know how. I'll feel silly. But here's the thing, sis. This isn't about being vulgar or performing some scripted fantasy. It's about affirmation. It's about letting your partner know in real time that they are desired, that they are pleasing you, that you are present and engaged and turned on. When you say you feel so good, you're not just describing a physical sensation, you're boosting your partner's sexual self esteem. You're creating a feedback loop of pleasure and confidence. And when you ask, do you like that? You're opening a dialogue, inviting your partner to communicate their desires, creating space for honesty and exploration. Research shows that affirming language during intimacy enhances attraction by validating desires and boosting self esteem. It improves communication during connection. It turns intimacy from a silent transactional act into a conversation, a dance, a shared experience of vulnerability and pleasure. Let me tell you about Jaya John, a Black love coach in Los Angeles. Jaya noticed that high achieving Black women and men were experiencing what he calls cold after intimacy emotional disconnects. They were having physical connection, but they weren't emotionally connecting. They were performing, but they weren't communicating. And the reason: unvoiced needs, unspoken desires, a lack of affirming, honest dialogue during their most vulnerable moments. So Jaya started hosting sensual activation retreats for entrepreneurs, creating a space where people could explore desired dialogues without judgment. He used guided questions in his retreats. Questions like, what does intimacy mean to you? And what do you need to hear during connection to feel safe and desired? He taught couples to use affirming language, phrases that boosted confidence and created trust. Simple words like, I love the way you touch me, or you're so beautiful right now, or I want more of this. And the results were stunning. 90% of attendees reported reigniting their passion. 90%. The key lesson: chemistry thrives on honest, pressure free sharing. It thrives when we stop performing and start communicating. It thrives when we affirm our partners and invite them to affirm us. Jaya has now authored bestsellers, served over 1,000 professionals through his retreats, and shifted the narrative on Black love sustainability. His work has been featured in major media outlets, and he's become a voice for couples who refuse to let their intimacy die under the weight of their ambitions. He reminds us that words matter, that affirmation matters, that saying what we feel, what we want, what we need is not selfish, it's sacred. The third insight is this: commit to experimenting with personalized flirting and touch, as what sparks chemistry is unique, helping leaders avoid emotional drift and maintain romantic orbits. This is where so many of us get stuck. We think there's a formula. We think if we just do what worked for someone else or what worked for us 10 years ago, we'll reignite the spark. But the truth is, chemistry is deeply personal. What turns you on might not turn your partner on. What worked in your 20s might not work in your 40s. And what sparks desire today might be different tomorrow. So we have to experiment. We have to be curious. We have to ask questions, try new things, pay attention to what makes our partner's breath catch, what makes their eyes light up, what makes them lean in instead of pull away. Let me tell you about Aisha Hunter, a therapist in Chicago who leads the Black Couples Collective. Aisha founded this organization after her own entrepreneurship strained her relationship. She and her partner were successful, driven, accomplished, but they were drifting. They had lost the sensual pleasures that once defined their partnership. They had become efficient co parents and business partners, but they were no longer lovers. Aisha described it as a slow fade where intimacy became routine, touch became mechanical, and desire became something they used to share. So Aisha started teaching intimacy circles for business owners. She taught couples to flirt again, to explore what felt good, to have fantasy discussions that personalized their chemistry. She encouraged them to experiment, to try new touches, new words, new rhythms. She reminded them that what worked last year might not work this year, and that's okay. Growth means evolution. Evolution means curiosity, and the outcomes were electric. Couples achieved reconnections that felt brand new even after decades together. The takeaway: individualized experiments prevent drift. When we stop assuming and start asking, when we stop repeating and start exploring, we maintain romantic orbits that feel alive, electric, and deeply satisfying. Today, the Black Couples Collective has expanded online to over 2,000 members, partnered with major podcasts, and become a vital resource for Black entrepreneurial intimacy. Aisha's work is proof that when we commit to personalized exploration, when we honor the uniqueness of our desires and our partner's desires, we can sustain passion that doesn't just survive, it thrives. So here's what I want you to hear, sis. Your empire is important, your career is important, your legacy is important, but so is your pleasure, so is your passion, so is your right to feel desired, connected, and alive in your intimate partnership. You don't have to choose between success and sensuality. You don't have to sacrifice your erotic self on the altar of productivity. You can have both, but only if you're intentional. Only if you prioritize flirty fantasy sharing conversations outside the bedroom. Only if you use confident, affirming language to boost mutual pleasure. Only if you commit to experimenting with personalized flirting and touch. Kimberly Gorham-Bolt reminded me that sexual chemistry is not a luxury. It's not something we get to when we have time. It's a necessity. It's what keeps us connected to our partners, to ourselves, to the fullness of our humanity. And here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. When we neglect our intimate lives, we don't just lose passion, we lose ourselves. We lose the part of us that feels, that desires, that craves connection beyond accomplishment. We become walking resumes, impressive on paper, but hollow in private. And that hollowness, that drift, that slow fade into roommate routines, it doesn't just hurt our relationships, it hurts our souls. So I'm not asking you to add one more thing to your to do list. I'm asking you to reclaim something you already own, your desire, your pleasure, your right to feel alive in your body, in your partnership, in your life. This week, I want you to start one flirty conversation with your partner, just one. Ask them what they've been fantasizing about. Tell them what you've been craving. Share a memory of a time you felt deeply connected and see what happens. See how that conversation shifts the energy between you. See how curiosity opened doors that assumption kept locked. Because you deserve softness. You deserve pleasure. You deserve a love that feels as alive as the empire you're building. And if you've been waiting for permission to prioritize your erotic life, consider this your permission slip. Not from me, but from yourself to yourself. For yourself, what one flirty conversation will you start with your partner this week to turn roommate routines into erotic orbits, reclaiming the passion your empire deserves? Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you're less busy. Don't wait until the kids are grown or the business is stable or the stress is gone. Start now. Start today. Start with one conversation, one affirmation, one experiment. Because the life you're building deserves to be lived fully, passionately, erotically, and so do you.